What have you broken in the past? Breakage isn't always bad. In fact, breaking things, including yourself, is completely okay when the experience leads to something better. This is How I Broke That.
Hello, breakers. Are you ready to break for the better? We're here live with Mark Bucher, ready to hear all about his long list of experiences and his businesses. We're going to dive into breakage that has occurred and might be occurring in his life. How did Mark do it? Moving from radio to real estate to restaurants seamlessly. How did he form multiple best of restaurants, all the while helping others in the industry stay afloat? Listen along to find out. We'll dive into Mark's background, his business ventures, and how he shifted during the pandemic to give back to others with his incredible venture, Feed the Fridge. We'll discover if Mark has even broken in the business or himself and how he took these challenges head on to build something better. And we're not just here to hear about Mark. We want to invoke changes for the better in our audience too. So are you ready? Because this inspirational entrepreneurial story is about to begin.
Welcome to How I Broke That.
Let's go, Mark. Welcome to the show.
It's great. It's great. And I'm honored. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, definitely. We are going to go way back for you, but I want to start to where you are right now, where literally you are.
I'm literally in Malibu, California, syncing up for Super Bowl, and been working all week on media and PR for Taste of the NFL, which is being taped tomorrow morning, being shown now before the game. One of the lucky chefs to be involved with that, and raising awareness of childhood hunger, and I've had to be any part of the Super Bowl that can be. The Super Bowl is still, for anyone who wants to break anything, it's the largest marketing event in the history of the planet by a billion times. So it's nice to come out here, get inspired, get energized.
Yeah. So that's the glamorous part. We're going to get into the breakage, but let's roll it back. You know, you and I have a couple personal connections, one of them having gone to the same university at American, being in the same fraternity. So we're cut from that same cloth. So take us back as far as you can. And I think a good place to start, very interesting for me and a lot of my audience, is your radio days, because those really kind of had some interesting times in DC. So take us back.
Well, as a kid growing up, I loved listening to radio. I just loved radio. Was a happy thing for me. And I love the music, and I love seeing live music performed, but I loved hearing the DJs. I loved hearing them in between songs. I would listen to radio to hear them. And, like in my bedroom or taking a shower, I would practice. I just would practice. Some people were singing songs in the shower. I was practicing, the call sign for, big rock station in Philly, whatever it was. And probably in 10th grade, I met a guy who was a DJ at a youth group event in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, which is where I'm from. And I said, this is kind of interesting, playing music for other people. So he needed help lugging his equipment, his gear around. So I started becoming an assistant, and I would help him lug his stuff around party to party and learn how to mix records, how to pick records, how to run a crowd, move a crowd, speak in front of a crowd, manage a wedding as an MC. And eventually, I think it was probably 11th grade, a year later, went to my parents and said, hey, can I borrow $3,500? I want to go buy my own gear and do it myself. And they're like, sure. They loaned me the money. And I went out and printed business cards and started doing flyers and picking up every school dance I could. And really was, I think back then I was making $85 for 4 hours, which doesn't sound like a lot now. Back then it wasn't bad. I had a job at a local sneaker store in the local mall. My mother was insistent that I got a real job. And my deal was I needed Friday and Saturday nights off because I was DJing. And I would make like $5 an hour there, and I'm making like $25 an hour. And I needed a Saturday night off, and the manager wouldn't give it to me. So I said, I quit. I went 6 months without telling my parents I quit the shoe store, but kept DJing along. Um, and really and loved it and made great money and loved being in front of people and learned I had a natural comfort level being in front of people. Um, and really started appreciating music. I leveraged that into an internship at WMMR, which is the largest radio station in Philadelphia. And I was a peon. I love being around radio stations. I love the energy of radio stations. I love the creative people that can sit in a dark room and make a morning show happen with no audience. And was really struck by that and caught the bug and wasn't going to let go of radio. So I was interning there, and it came time to apply for college. It's my junior year of high school, and I applied, got into Boston University and American, among others, and then I applied for radio jobs in Boston and DC, and DC had the first job, and chose American, and came to school and had a job at a local radio station here, and that carried me all the way through college.
Call letters?
Q107, WRQX 107.3. Top hits.
I remember it. Oh, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was either
During-
107 or WAVA before they flipped.
Right. WAVA was the big one. I was 7 to midnight, Monday through Friday. And, it was the days of, we had, by the way, just so you know, Josh, if you're everyone who wants to be a millionaire and the topic is 80 songs and they only play you the first 2 notes, I'm your guy.
Okay.
Because, we had to cue them up in headphones back in the old days. They didn't have digital like they have today, and I know every song, first 2 or 3 notes. I still do, even the one hit
add
wonders.
That to your list of talents, okay?
Even the one hit wonders. So I'll throw Scritti Politti. Everyone's going to go look it up now. Go look it up. But that radio was by far, live radio, as you and I were kind of talking about, live was the single best training I could have ever had in a career that spanned decades and got me to where I am today.
I got to ask you a question. I'm going to back us up a minute or two. What did you tell your Jewish mother after you had not gone to the sneaker store for 6 months? Because sometimes we got to take a risk as entrepreneurs. So you were clearly, doing that. But what did you finally tell them?
I forget. I think I had my father handle it.
Okay.
I think
Mark, delegate.
So the challenge was I didn't have a driver's license yet, and my father had to drive me to all the gigs. So we would do it kind of in secret. And I'm like, bro, you got to give me a solid. Go tell her that I'm really, I can't do it. You got to just tell her. And he goes, because now you're making your problem my problem. But somehow or another, it ended up just fine. I think she probably just forgot about it, and then ended up just fine. I mean, the sneak was, Josh. So the girl, my high school girlfriend, worked at the mall. So I would pick her up from work on like Friday or Saturday night, and we'd go out or whatever, and then I would come home. So after my gigs, I'd get her and then come home. My mother just likes coming home from the mall. And it was just whatever. So
yeah, totally. Well, you're in my heart, you're warming my heart because one of my first jobs after lawn mowing was caddying. And my dad and I used to drive from our house in what is now called North Bethesda, but really is Rockville, from Rockville to Bethesda Country Club. And he would, take me there in his car, and I'd do my rounds, and then he'd pick me up. So we had some intimate moments as well, driving. So thank you for bringing that part back up. So let's talk about go from radio to real estate, and how does that transition happen?
So I learned pretty early on that there was no real money. As I got older, money started mattering a little bit. Like, having beer money and walking around money was fine when you're in college and you're busy during the day. And I always had money because I was, my parents were paying for my food and my housing, and I was working. But I started realizing that the people that I worked with were all struggling. And, one day, one of the guys puts his arms around me and says, man, you're at the top of the heap. You're making $55,000 a year, and you're making more than the morning show guy right now. And there's nowhere to go up. I'm like, 55 grand. What? And I'm like, I got to start rethinking this a little bit. So talking to my father, and he goes, I got a lot of buddies in commercial real estate that seem to make a lot of money. He goes, why don't you See if that interests you. I'm like, huh. Real estate's always had an interest for me. So I created a resume. My only job was, besides my lawnmower newspaper route, was DJing and working on the radio station, and got hired by another AU graduate, similar to our story. He wasn't in our fraternity, but he saw the resume, hired me. I knew nothing, and they walked me around. They taught me everything. Taught me how to, taught me how to buy a suit. Taught me how to buy shoes. Taught me how to dress. Taught me how to organize. They bring me to their meetings, and really mentored me. It was really a transformative part of my.
This is in DC.
Life. Yeah, this was with a company called Shannon and Lux, which is no longer around.
Gosh, we talk about Errol's next after this.
That's right.
We talked about RQX and Shannon Lux and Errol's.
Right, and we've got Errol's, and don't forget Little Tavern.
Little Tavern, hot shops. I mean, we could turn this into a best.
That's right. That's
DC,
right.
If you want.
I worked with them as their intern, graduated college, and got my broker's license, and went to work for another company called Barnes Morrison Pardo, which is a much smaller boutique firm. But these were the guys who were making the big money. And they took me in, and again, exposed me to everything, took me to everything. Back then, commercial real estate was a business almost like very similar to restaurant chefing 20 years ago, where you go find a mentor to carry you through the business. And in commercial real estate, that was the way the world worked. You had to mentor someone and bring them up. It was almost like multi-level marketing without it being multi-level marketing. And these guys were great. They took me on business trips. And I remember going to eat at a fancy restaurant in Miami once. I wasn't even sure how to use silverware to eat the meal. I mean, it was just one of those transformative experiences, and did great. Kept working my way up. Real estate market crashed in 1994. And these guys really started struggling to get money to feed their families. I was crushing it. My theory was every neighborhood shopping center needed a dry cleaner and a bakery. And even when the market crushed, I went to the DC Association of Bakers and the DC Association of Dry Cleaners. I went to their meeting. I said, if you want a free store, I can find you a free store in these centers that are losing tenants. And I just started dropping in bakeries and dry cleaners in every center. It was crazy, but I was just clicking them up. True story. I was at a meeting, came back to the office, which is down at 13th and G, came back from dinner, and that's in DC. And one of the older guys was in my trash can pulling out my phone messages. They were on little pink slips back then. We didn't have voicemail. They were little pink sheets of paper. Josh called about 1826 I Street, give him a call. And they were picking my messages up because they needed to feed their families. So I said, okay, I'm gonna let them do that. I didn't need it. I was okay. So I went and left brokerage and went to the institutional side of commercial real estate, which is the debt, lending, and equity side of things. I went to Equitable Real Estate Investment Management, which is part of the insurance company. I wanted to go to grad school, and I wanted someone to pay for it. So they paid for me to go to Hopkins. I got my master's in real estate and finance, graduated, gave them their 2 years. They closed the DC office. Fine. During that time and during my brokerage time, I fell in love with restaurants and restaurant real estate. Food Network was just starting, and there was a huge thing about celebrity chefs and great restaurants, and the DC's restaurant scene was changing. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go see if I can get a job doing site selection work for a restaurant chain. I wanted to learn everything I could about franchising and restaurant chains. I applied, got hired right away by Dunkin' Donuts, the director of real estate for the DC area. And that was my first drop into restaurant real estate.
Yeah, and I heard you tell a story about driving by the spot at Cabin John that you did a 30-year lease on. So let's hold on the restaurant stuff for now. We're going to do that in the second half because I think that's really going to have an impact also on our audience. But at this point in your career, you've got so much going on. I mean, obviously you're hanging out in LA and
working. I'm looking at sites.
You're working, of course.
And I'm very thirsty.
Ooh, okay. Well, I think you could probably teach multiple classes: real estate, radio, restaurants, vodka. We have a sponsor that we love. called Click2. Click2 has created an effective, easy to use, cohort based course platform for enrichment providers. They are breaking the self paced class trend and online learning as we know it. Cohort bases offer skill building, knowledge, live instruction, and a community of students to learn alongside of. And all of these features are a part of Click2. So, Mark, I happen to know somebody at Click2. If you decide you want to teach a class in any of those things, I can get you hooked up.
I
But for
might, I
now,
might consider that.
good, good. Let's think about it. But for now, I wanna spend the second half of our conversation really talking about the restaurants. And this reminds me, I have to ask you about getting a gift certificate for Medium Rare. My wife said, if you're going to talk to Mark, we need a gift certificate for a family member. So I'll ask you about that off the
My
air.
pleasure.
All right, cool. And you have taken care of my parents during the pandemic, actually for their anniversary.
Okay.
So let's talk restaurants, and we've got to encapsulate in 15 minutes everything you've done from uh, burgers to steaks, and then feed the fridge. And I want you to talk about that, please, when it comes to being very entrepreneurial, because clearly that's what you've done, and that's what our people are looking for.
Well, the entrepreneurial bug started when I was young, DJing these parties, right? And after I got done my stint doing real estate work for restaurants, I realized what a terrible business person chef was. Every site they saw they loved, they were always looking for the cheapest site, pay the least amount of rent. And I kept saying, get the best site, pay the most rent. Rent is only 10% of your total sales. If it's the difference between doing 500,000 to 5 million, you go 5 million, you pay the rent. But they were always looking at it wrong. And I kept thinking, no wonder so many restaurants fail, because we've put these artists and now said they're business people. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do it a little differently. So long and short, I got here through a weave path. I had developed a burger recipe that had won best burger in Las Vegas. So I knew I had something that I could do something with. Went on Craigslist and I started looking for restaurants for sale, see if I could open a burger place. Found a health food store in Bethesda, Maryland that was for sale for $5,000, right in Woodmont Triangle. This was the original center of Bethesda that became the neighborhood next door when the other side developed, like Bethesda got developed. Anyway, went and talked to her, bought it. In about 60 days, opened up a burger restaurant that had 4 things on the menu. I hired all my contractors from Craigslist, cost $64,000. And we opened up making a burger, a bacon cheeseburger, and a veggie burger. Burger, bacon cheeseburger, veggie burger, and a turkey burger. And that was it. And fries and sodas and shakes. Killed it. There was a line around the corner. There was such a desperate need for a burger that sat in the middle of McDonald's and Woodmont Grill, or McDonald's and Clyde's, or McDonald's and and Houston's. Think of that. Houston's was just an $18 burger, and McDonald's was a $2 burger. The middle area was wide open on the quick service market. Five Guys was just starting. There was no one else. Shake Shack wasn't really in existence yet. They were just in New York. So my premise was, I'm going to offer that Houston's burger at half the price. And we did it. And BGR grew to 41 locations under like franchise agreement. And I sold the company in 2013. I had the wrong partners, and the only way for me to get out of that company was for me to have it sold. And it was the best and worst thing I ever did, because I still feel I could have done great things with that. Still might get back in the burger game. But during my 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 7-year run in burgers, I won every best burger award known to man. I won the World Burger Championships 4 times, actually 5. And that's like, it got me, it's a ticket to me, because it got me out to taste of the NFL. I get to promote Feed the Fridge based on burgers that I did so many years ago. So that's a long circuitous trip of how we got here. Medium rare. And by the way, what I learned early on was it's not about the food. A lot of restaurants that have the best food go out of business. A lot of restaurants that get Michelin stars go out of business. A lot of restaurants on the best of list don't make it to the next year. It's all about the brand. and the brand connection to its guests. So BGR opened up, and you now know me well enough to know it was a connection to music and rock. You walked into BGR and there were vintage album covers on the walls. I did the soundtrack. I controlled the way the room sounded. We had subwoofers in there, and it was a really cool experience. And I hooked people with the quality of the food, the reasonableness of the price, but the experience. Every song that came on, they knew and they sang to. And we built a business off of that. It wasn't just a burger.
Well, so interesting conversation, of course, about bad business partners. We don't need to go into that. We'll all just be grateful and gracious that we got to have those experiences. But what do you do in a situation like that when you realize you might not have the right, I'm not going to call them best or worst, but the right business partners for you? What do you recommend people do?
Everyone starts a business relationship best friends. People that invest in you or believe in you and want to put money in your deal, like, oh my God, they're the best, da, 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 da. You don't really know how they are until they get stressed or until they're stressed in the business. And this business partner, swear to God, at a lunch, sat down and he goes, I don't need you. I can go hire anyone to make burgers. I'm like, go F yourself. You can go have anyone you want. I still had a significant amount of the business, and he couldn't do anything without me proving or saying it, and ended up saying we're selling the company. You can't, but it's having good lawyers and being advised well. And just like I get into a lease, you sign a lease for a restaurant location with an exit strategy. Just in case things go bad, you can get out without getting crushed. Same with a business relationship. You have to structure it that one of you can get out without being crushed.
So I'm actually working with a business coach, life coach. Her name is Lisa M.K. Ling. She's awesome. She was on my show before. And we talk about how the past does not dictate the future.
100% agree.
And I'm working on that a lot. Sounds like you were able to accomplish that with your new business partner, because I've watched some interviews and read some interviews, and you talk very highly of your current business partner from Medium Rare.
Yeah, so Tom, Greg, and I have been business partners for 12 years. We've been friends for 14 or 15 years. We are polar opposites. I see the world through a very different lens than he sees the world, and vice versa. And that's a good thing, because I've realized, but let's go back. When you're an entrepreneur and you start everything, you think you are the master of everything. You're your own CFO, you're your own COO, you're your own HR department, and that's where things get all messed up. I learned that I don't enjoy the accounting financial side of running businesses. I'm an opener, I'm a starter, I'm not a runner. I enjoy the live podcast, the live radio, creating something from the ashes, opening it, get the ratings, move on, and supporting the brand. He loves numbers and math, and make sure every dollar hits the bank account, and make sure that everyone's paid on time and all reports are filed. So it works out well. He lets me be creative, and I let him handle all the money, and we're both very happy together. We're also older. I mean, I'm in my 50s now. I don't know if I could have had this partnership in my 20s or my 30s. I wouldn't have had, to your point, I wouldn't have had the failures or the stress. Doesn't dictate the future, but it does leave a little thickening of the skin. And I'm not all I thought I was, kind of thing, right? And every now and then you need that beat down to make sure you're doing things right. And as I got older, as I had kids, and as I had other responsibilities, I knew that I couldn't take the same risks and needed to have a really good wingman or wingwoman to do this.
Yeah. I mean, that's why that breakage that we talk about, I think we've gotten to know each other. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm a glass half full guy all the way. But as I've gotten older, I have begun to recognize that the breakage is okay. That it's okay to fall down. It's how you get back up in business and in life. I want to, though, hit on this one part that clearly, although you guys complement each other, you have threads that are the same, and your business partner must believe in community as much as you do, because you have made your restaurants, and let's talk about Medium Rare quickly, but then also Feed the Fridge community.
So I will tell you, on March 3rd of 2020, the first announcement before COVID was really here was if you're over the age of 60 or you're immune compromised, stay inside because COVID might get you, and just ride it out. It's going to be gone by summertime. It doesn't survive in hot weather, politics aside. And I put a tweet out that night, and I said, anyone who knows anyone that fits in this category in the DC metro area, we will deliver them free medium rare dinners, no questions asked. No one should go without food. My father was 84. He passed away. I knew he didn't have a smartphone. He didn't have Grubhub on his phone. He couldn't order in meals. He didn't order in groceries. His caregivers couldn't come in and see him. I knew it would be a disaster for my sister and I to care for him. So I said, I have the ability to do something here. Let's do it. I didn't ask him. I just did it because I felt it was the right thing to do, and I'd figure it out. Well, he, his first thing was, who's going to pay for this? And my second thing was, what do we care? He said, there are people in our community that are in trouble right now. We say in our mantra, we're fun, friendly, and we're neighborhood. This doesn't get more neighborhood than taking care of everyone when they are down. We'll survive. And I said, by the way, what are you doing? What are you going to do? How are you going to change this right now? Because we're in the shit. And I'm calling you out. Don't sit at your desk. Get up and do something. And he goes, you know what? You're right. Let's do it. And we figured it out. We started delivering, 30,000 plus meals over the first year. Stumbled on a huge hunger problem because we're entrepreneurs. I'm an entrepreneur. Realized that our country's solutions to hunger don't work. They never work. It's a fraud. And the only way to really stop hunger is to provide a meal every day to the same people in the same spot, so they're not hungry anymore. So we launched a series of refrigerators around DC, 29 of them, that we fill up with, whether it's 20, 30, 40, 50, or 100 meals a day, free to anyone who needs it. And we buy these meals from local restaurants. We raise money through a nonprofit. We buy the meals from restaurants to keep them afloat and keep things moving. And let's be clear. There's no bigger breakage than in the restaurant business. Yeah. 70% of restaurants fail in the first 6 years. The business model doesn't work. It's never worked. We got to be grown up and say the restaurant business is a broken business model. It doesn't work. Statistically, it doesn't work. It's got to be fixed. So I said, you know what? Restaurants and chefs can solve hunger if you give them the opportunity. That's
Why?
kind of what
I'm going to stop you. What makes restaurants and chefs so damn good at, there's obviously, you got to do. Tell me.
All you got to do is Google Chicago Public Schools school lunch and look at an image of what they put out as a school lunch. And all you got to do is then Google a kid's meal at Panera. And that's the difference of why restaurants can solve hunger compared to schools. So restaurants, we know how to buy food effectively. We use all natural, non-processed proteins. We know how to cook them. We know how to season them. We know how to make them taste good. And I can make 20,000 lunches in 3 hours and let me back up, Josh. I can make any meal right now and get it to any address in less than 30 minutes. COVID made restaurant delivery really good. Where it used to be pizza and Chinese food, now you can get Indian, Asian, sushi, lobster. The technology's brought that together, so I can now send food at a specific address. Instead of people having to come and get food at a food pantry or soup kitchen, I bring the food to them. And that's the game changer. We put it in refrigerators and we deliver it to their address. And we deliver restaurant quality meals. We deliver meals with 8 ounces of protein, 8 ounces of carbohydrate, 8 ounces of a fresh vegetable. And the reason we do that, that's not a USDA standard. That's an American Pediatric Association standard. Kids eat that and they're not hungry for 8 hours. Elderly eat that, it's 2 meals. We wanted to satiate hunger. And we wanted them not to be hungry until the next meal. Because young kids, they're hungry in the middle of the day. They hit the sodas, they hit the Doritos, they gain weight, childhood obesity is running crazy here. I think the USDA and federal school lunch program is an unintended consequence. Because no one can prepare processed food cheaper and better than this country. And we've fallen victim to it.
But it comes back to community. And By the way, you didn't just grab these fridges off the street. You went to Nats Park, probably pulled some strings and said, we need your fridges. You're not using them.
So we're a partner with them. We have a medium rare there. We've had one there now for the last 4 seasons, short of the COVID one we missed. And I called them and said, you know what? I need your help. There's no fans in the stadiums. You've got all these Bud Light, Coca-Cola refrigerators around the concourses. Can I borrow some? So sure, how many do you need? When do you want to get them? I mean, it was that fast. To the organization's credit, to Levy Restaurant's credit, who's the concessionaire there, never said no to me. And we borrowed refrigerators, we rebranded them, we wrapped them, so we got the logos off of them. We started placing them in parks and rec centers and schools around DC where everyone could get a meal. We delivered meals to them every day. And that's how we started. And we continue to do that today.
So I think, in the final moments here, I'm lucky enough because I get to hear everything and digest as well. First of all, it comes down to community. You built, your life and your businesses in the DC area, but clearly you can be transported to California and do it as well. But also, sounds like what you found, and I'm grateful that I also found kind of my business partner in a guy named Michael Fay, who's actually on his way to meet me. We love each other as much as we can't stand each other, but that's how we complement each other
Right.
in the business world. And you've got to kind of find that, it seems like, to kind of take that next step when you leave the part of being entrepreneurial, which is when you think you know everything and you have to do everything. When you can get to that point of having your counterpart, your wingman or your wingwoman, that is very helpful as well. Is that true?
100%. Josh, think of it as, and by the way, I had an executive coach too for years, and it was transformative. So I'm proud of you for doing that. It was transformative for me for doing that. He drew a picture for me of a boat with a wake behind it, and the entrepreneur is the boat, but you've got human resources and you've got financial behind you, and you need someone that is okay being behind you, collecting all that. And Tom and I are equal partners. He's the most successful restaurateur you never heard of, because we just work well together. And there was a point in time where his wife was getting a little bent. She was saying, he needs to mention you more. And she was right. She was actually right, because a lot of the interviews were about me, but really there's no me without him, and there's no him without me, and that's what it comes down to. We both now understand in our 50s the magic that we both bring to the partnership. Now, I will tell you, we have argued and we have fought, and we've got a minority partner in our deal that is a non-voting partner, but he runs referee, and that also helps. And we've learned that over breaking in the past. You need a referee.
We need a referee, and we need the breakage. And you and I got to go. You need to go out there and do your thing in California and have an amazing Super Bowl. So I completely appreciate you taking the time to be here. You've been a mentor of mine for several years now. I remember when the pandemic hit. I remember when you started talking about Feed the Fridge, and I was inspired by it. So thank you for taking the time and go out there and do your thing. We
Josh,
are very proud of you in DC.
Well, and likewise of you. I appreciate you thinking of me. Let's spread the word, and you're doing good here, and let's inspire some people to do some things right.
All right, go out there. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Go 1-0 today.
That's right.
Thanks for listening. Next time on How I Broke That.